This is the one, $1,200. You want a big tablet, which do you buy? Uncle Mikey is here to help. Surface Pro 9 in the beautiful, stunning forest green color. Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra. Not the Plus, Ultra. The biggest, baddest 14-inch and change tablet. iPad Pro, M1, this is my M1 that I've been using for the last few months. Not an M2, other than the chip, not too much of a difference. Which one do you buy? Let's dive in and figure it out together. First things first, as you're looking at these machines, look at the fit and the finish. The Surface Pro feels glorious, and I mean glorious in my hands. They've chamfered these edges a little bit more, they've softened them, there's no kind of harsh corners. It just feels beautiful. The magnesium feels beautiful. It's balanced, it's a good size. Everything about this makes me want to hold it and use it as my tablet device. And here, while it's in my hands, let's look at these ports. You've got the Surface dock over on one side, and then on the other side, we've got these USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, so you can get the latest and greatest connections for your thumb drives, your SSD drives, your 4K monitors, all that good stuff. And then as for the placement of the buttons here, the power and the volume combination together here on the top is one of my favorites. You see that on the Galaxy Tab as well. Apple went a little bit different and put the power on the top and the volume on the side to separate them, I guess, to avoid accidental presses, all that kind of stuff. Horses for courses, take your pick. The Surface feels beautiful. Galaxy Tab also feels great. What's interesting is this is the only tablet that's a 16:10 ratio screen, so it's slightly wider, not quite as tall. The other two are 3:2 ratios, for every 3 inches in width, 2 inches in height. And it shows here because on consumption, and by that I mean things like video, that it's recorded in 16:9, you get less of the black bar top and bottom, and it really fills the screen. And when you look at the screen, which you're going to see in a second because we're going to play you some footage, it just looks magnificent. It's huge and it feels great. Fit and finish definitely feels premium and polished. The edges are probably the most corner, if I want to say that, on this device of all three. Less rounding, a little bit of that flat slab kind of feel. Again, USB-C, one port on the bottom of the device if you're holding it vertical. And then you've got the speaker grills on both sides to get audio kicking out. And you've got the connector for its keyboard base if you decide to go with that accessory. And then we go to the iPad Pro. Probably the most balanced feeling. It feels very similar yet very different to the Surface Pro. Similar in size, but it's hard to explain just how different they feel holding them in your hand. It's definitely flatter and more of a slab, but the corner edges aren't quite as cornered as the Galaxy. USB-C again on the iPad, so you can take advantage of that. And you've got obviously power, volume, and that's about it. No headphone jack, no anything else. You've got the connector dock port there for the keyboard, and it also feels great. The Samsung seems to be the fingerprint magnet of the three of them, interestingly. Almost zero fingerprints on the Surface and minimal on the iPad. If I was rating these turned off just from the slabs that they are in my hands, I honestly would rate the Surface #1. It feels the nicest, it feels the softest to touch, the edges feel the roundest, and for me, I like that. I would rate iPad #2, and I would put the Samsung in last place. If we move on to life beyond the slab and we turn them on, things change, however. Here are some shots for you so you can see these screens while I talk you through what's happening. It is pretty clear from the outset, the Samsung's OLED screen is magnificent. That's not to say that the iPad and the Surface Pro are slouches by any means, because they look pretty magnificent. But next to the Samsung, they don't look magnificent enough. The Samsung is the clear winner on all of these photos that I'm showing you here. The colors are richer, they're more vibrant, and interestingly, look at some of the black tones as you're seeing them, particularly the stone on one of these shots. And it's got these bluish tints on a couple of the screens, but not on the Samsung. Where it gets even more interesting is how surprisingly good the Surface screen is. I wasn't expecting it. I don't know why. I just figured this would be the poor relation, but the Surface screen really holds its own. And again, as you look at these shots, I really don't see a whole lot to nitpick between it and the iPad. If anything, there are definitely instances where the Surface looks better than the iPad screen, and obviously the Samsung is still in first place. So I don't know, I was kind of surprised. I mean, again, they all look great on their own, you'd never know, but these are the top of the tree, folks. Like, this is as good as it gets, and you're not going to be disappointed with any one of them. Bear in mind, Samsung's OLEDs do have this pulse width modulation. I don't like getting super technical, but you'll see it here. I'll show you a glimpse where you see the banding. When the screen dims, you really catch it on camera. In real life, you don't see that, but your brain does, and it can cause headaches. So bear that in mind. That's an issue with a lot of OLED screens. It's just what it is. Now let's talk about sound. Here are some sound clips for you. Again, I'm going to play 50% volume on each device. I'm going to give you a couple of sound clips. They're royalty free. I can't play the really good music because I don't have the license to do that. But check it out and see what you think. So the iPad's definitely the quieter of the three devices at 50% volume. It was kind of hard to decide, is the sound quality better because it was noticeably quieter? I don't think any of them really stood out, and I don't think any of them really sounded very bad. Again, the standout for me was just how good the Surface sounded, because I wasn't expecting it. I was not expecting this device to be in the same league as these. I don't know why. I mean, Microsoft's been at the tablet thing for longer, but I was just expecting it to be really tinny, really hollow, and that wasn't the case. Again, I don't think I'd be disappointed with any of the sound coming out of these three devices. If I had to pick a winner, I would be splitting between the Samsung and the Surface, but I really don't know which I would pick. I really think I want to listen to a few more soundtracks and kind of play with that for myself, depending on the kind of music I like versus the kind of music you like to listen to. All of these devices have a keyboard option. Obviously with the Surface I have it because it's really difficult to use without it. It's not to say you can't use it as a tablet, but this is a PC first, tablet second. And it does show there were instances where we were doing testing and it stutters, it's not as fluid. You swipe up from the bottom on the Samsung, you swipe up from the bottom on the iPad, and you swipe up from the bottom on the Surface, and it doesn't work. It's not the same. I can't just swipe down and get a window out of the way. Like, it still works like a real PC, and I think that lets it down. I guess you have to choose. Do you want to be a PC interface or a touch-first tablet interface? But I think it makes it confusing for what the device is if people really want this as a tablet first. And if you do, this is not the device you want to buy. I don't think this should be a tablet first device. It's not a great experience. It's just not. It's Windows. It's a desktop operating system, and that's how it is. The keyboards are extra on all three. They're ridiculously priced on all three. I don't care what anybody says. You shouldn't have to spend $269, $299, or even close to that to buy an attachable keyboard on a tablet that cost about $1,000 or so. That just seems too much to me, but what do I know? I'm just a tech reviewer. I don't have the other keyboards here. I can't comment on them in this video. However, if you go back and watch the full videos, and I do have full videos on the Ultra and the iPad, you'll see that I do address some of this a little bit more. The keyboard on the Galaxy Tab Ultra is superb. It's literally like a full-size keyboard. It's a decent-sized trackpad. With it on, you will literally look at it and think you are using a laptop. It looks just like a laptop, and it works really well. The keyboards on the iPads, I've never gelled with them. I don't like them. I don't get it. The sizing's off. They feel shrunk and kind of truncated. The trackpad's really small. I just don't like them. It's definitely my least favorite. So if you're looking for a tablet that you're going to use a keyboard with on a regular basis and you want touch first, Samsung is the winner on that one. If you can live with desktop first, Microsoft could be the winner for you there, but it's still, for me, split between those two. This one falls in last place. And you know, you might not get this right, but the life of a tech reviewer is very hard. Just to do some of these tests, just to get those wallpapers downloaded, the iPad downloads them to files, then I got to go into files and I got to save the images to my photos before I can save them as a wallpaper or display them and that kind of thing. Whereas the Samsung handles it differently and then this thing handles it differently. It was pretty tedious to get these things to play ball, and especially to get those videos to play about the same time, which was way harder. Now, let's talk about webcams. It's going to be a big one. If you're on the go on a tablet, you're going to want to see how you look. when you are zooming and booming with other people. Here's some footage. I did some testing with all three. This is front camera test footage. I am looking at the Surface Pro 9. I cannot do a whole lot with this camera. The camera app is very basic. I can't find the option to zoom out or anything like that. This is the Samsung Ultra Tab S8, and I can do cool things like that and go a little bit more widescreen if I've got a few folks in there to bring it back in tighter. And then here is the iPad Pro. It doesn't want to let me go wide, but it did just a second ago. And that is now the wide angle shot on the iPad by itself. I literally had to stop recording and change the shot. I cannot seem to figure out how to do that while I'm actually recording at the same time. Bit of a letdown if you ask me. It was cool that I could do that in the moment on the Samsung. As I'm testing on these three devices, you can hear the audio. We're going to flick them from device to device for you so you can hear how I sound, because I don't know how I sound because I can't hear it. I can tell you looking at them, the Surface Pro is by far the worst picture. The colors are washed out. I don't look right. The definition around my head doesn't look right. As I look at the Samsung, I guess I just like the way Samsung seems to process color and photos and that kind of stuff, because I think this one looks the best. It's definitely the biggest image because it's the 14-inch tablet. And I look at the iPad, it looks pretty good, but I see grain. I see noise like here on my skin. It's like video noise. And I don't see that on the Galaxy at all. And if I'm honest, I don't really see it on the Surface, even though the picture looks horrible from where I'm standing right now. So here, you know what? I'm gonna get a shot so that I can show you all exactly what I'm looking at. Surface Pro 9 is by far and away the worst of the webcams. I don't like how I looked. I don't like the coloring. I don't like how it's picking up the studio. It didn't look like the studio really looks. It was more interesting between the Samsung and the iPad. Color-wise, between these two, again, very close. You just looked at the shots yourselves. Take your pick which kind of color profile you like the look of. For me, I actually think the Samsung looks a little bit better. I like what it did to my skin, to my face. I noticed noise and a little bit of graininess on the iPad that just wasn't there on the Samsung in these lighting conditions, which are obviously dark room with a big floodlight and that kind of stuff. So it was surprising because I thought the iPad would win on that one. While we're talking about the webcams and the quality of the recording, don't forget this and this, Galaxy, Surface, the webcams are in the middle for landscape. On the iPad, they've now moved the webcam to the middle on the new 10th gen. Check out my video, by the way, on that one if you want. It's still set for portrait mode here on the iPad Pro. And what that means is, right now, the camera is here on the side. So you notice in the shot, as you were looking before, I look a little bit lower versus higher, depending on which screen you're looking at, because of the placement of the camera. Most of the time, I think, when you're zooming, webcamming, that kind of stuff, I think people typically are going to go horizontal. That's what I see in my co-working spaces when I'm in the office. So I'm not saying Apple should move it. I don't mind it being vertical because I use my iPad more vertical than I do horizontal. I'm just letting you know that that's going to be a shift. If you're going to use this for a lot of video chats, you might not like the placement quite so much compared to if it was at the top. So performance-wise, this is where it gets really icky because a lot of this is going to depend on what you want to do. And I'm not throwing benchmarks up here because I don't think they're going to help. I have used these devices extensively. I've used this iPad for about 6 months or so on and off. I've used this Ultra for many months on and off. Obviously the Surface Pro 9 I got recently, but I've used Surface Pro 8 before. So the way the Surface works, the Windows interface, that kind of stuff, touch, keyboard, very, very familiar with. If you need a laptop replacement and you don't have another laptop device, that's going to nudge you to the Surface because it's going to give you that familiar desktop interface. I can download a zip file easily. I can just drag and drop things easily. Now, yes, you can do those things here, but these mobile first, tablet first operating systems do it in a different way. If you've grown up on this and used nothing else, that might not be a big deal. But if you're old like Uncle Mikey, who grew up on MS-DOS and Windows 3, and then Windows 95, and then 98, and then Vista, and XP, and I don't even know how many versions there was. Windows NT was in there as well somewhere. There's just some muscle memory and familiarity that I can't just seem to drop. 10 years in with iPads and iPhones, I still like the familiarity of a desktop operating system. If you don't need this and it's a companion device, you have another laptop that you can take on the go when you need to get real work done, things get more interesting. The Surface to me moves to last place because using it tablet first is such a disappointing experience compared to these mobile first operating systems. Like these two, they're just fluid. I mean, they fly, they're smooth, they ebb and they flow really nicely. There's so little between them. There's many days when I use a Samsung, I think, man, this is the one I just want to keep and use all the time. Then there's a couple of things I want to try and do and I'm just so used to them in iOS. I think, oh, I'm going to go get my iPad, I'm going to do it over there. Over the two of them, personally, if I really, really had to choose one and I wasn't tied to an ecosystem, I wasn't worried about how's it going to sync with my phone and my computer and my family and everything else, on its own as a standalone device, I think the Samsung would win for me on a performance basis. It's snappy, it's zippy, and it works. But then you've got friends and family who also have devices, and there's the iMessage, is it Android messages, is all your movies and your music already in iTunes, or is it in the Google Play Store? And those kind of things start to sway a little bit differently. But they're both very close performance-wise. You're not gonna have an issue. What I can tell you is this. I was sat in Lightroom editing some photos a few days ago, and I was doing it on the tab. When I would open a picture up, it would be a hesitant split second as it came into focus. And then when I would choose like auto for the, automatic touch-ups or whatever, just to keep it easy and consistent, again, there would be like this hesitant split second and then it would work. On the iPad, there's no hesitation. It opens, you hit the button, it's instant, and it's done. The M1 chip is the superior chip. Make no mistake about it. So if you're going to push it and try and do higher load things, this is the one to go for. On the subject of performance, you might be thinking, what about battery life, Mike? What's going on there? Well, let me tell you what's going on there. Surface Pro is the loser. It is by far and away the one that's not going to last as long. Will you get 5 hours out of it? Yes. Will you get 6 or 7? Probably. Will you get 8 or 9? I don't know. Will you get 10? I don't think so. These two, on the other hand, will fly a little bit longer. Which one's going to fly furthest? It's going to be the iPad. I have to say it. This is the battery winner. This is great. It's really not bad at all. But I think if you were doing the same thing on both of these devices, you're probably going to get about 30 minutes to an hour longer out of the iPad than you are out of the Galaxy, which is surprising because the Galaxy is bigger. And that leads me to something that I should have mentioned when I was talking about the fit and finish earlier. So I'm going to mention it right now because it's my video and I can do that. The Surface and the iPad feel very balanced in your hand. They're a nice width, they're a nice height, they feel easy to hold, a little bit top heavy, not so much. Because the Samsung is actually a taller screen ratio, if you hold it vertical, it's very top heavy because it's longer. And so that's going to catch you out. Horizontal, not going to be an issue at all, but vertical, and I do like to read vertical, I find it a hassle to hold sometimes. You get a little bit of fatigue in your arms, so just keep that in mind. 3 awesome tablets. If you want to go desktop first, desktop operating system primarily, Surface is your champ. If that's not the case, this bad boy unfortunately doesn't cut the mustard for me. It's going to be between Samsung and Apple. If you've got an ecosystem issue and you've got to go one way or the other, that's going to dictate it for you. If you don't, and you just want the best tablet money can buy as an all-around tablet, between these two, it is so close. It is so difficult. I do like the slightly more fluid, polished feel of iOS. I love the slightly bigger screen size of the Samsung Galaxy Tab. I think the Android system is a little bit easier to use like a desktop, if that's what you want to do, moving files around, that kind of stuff. But the Apple ecosystem obviously is incredibly polished. It syncs flawlessly with my iPhone for my messages. Well, at least it used to. Lately it's not been, but I don't know why. Typically it does. And so you're left with a really hard choice. Which way do you go? Why don't you tell me? Drop some comments below and let me know. So I got an email from a guy called Jeff, who's a really cool guy. He said, Mike, do you want to check out our awesome wallets? They're made in the USA. They are RFID blockers and they are super cool. And I said, okay, shoot me one over, Jeff. I'll play. And so he did. And here I am. I'm playing. Check this bad boy out. A little carbon fiber. Okay, this is a credit card holder and it's going to block those bad boy signals from your cards and stop the bad boys. from stealing your information. You heard it here first from Uncle Mikey. And it just swipes, okay? It's like a phone. It's got like a little thumb thing here. And you basically just swipe and up comes the card. And out she comes. And so I got some dummy cards here just to see how many can we fit in this thing. Because you might carry a few. These are fake credit cards. Like, how cool are the GeoGrit guys? Sending me all the stuff to play with. Oh, just like that. I'm going to put a second one in. Oh, just like that. I'm going to put a third one in. And just like that. Here comes number 4. I mean, how many cards do you carry at the same time? I carry like 3 or 4, I think. But here we are, and we're up to number 6. And all it does is stretch and expand. It's got like a little bit of elastication on the sides. Got the belt clip as well, so you can kind of clip that on. I gotta tell you, I personally wish I could just take that off because I wouldn't put that on my belt. And then if I put it in my back pocket, I don't want to sit on it and kind of stab myself in the backside. But I may be the only one who thinks like that. So this is 6 cards right now in the GeoGrit, all RFID blocking. And just like my phone, I'm going to go here and I'm going to swipe. And up she comes, just like that. Take the card out, away you go. This thing, it feels like I can't even bend it. There's no flex in it. This is not going to twist and spoil my cards in any way, shape or form. Durability is there, but just in case it isn't, they give you a lifetime warranty as well. Lifetime, okay? And if you're a young spring chicken like me, that's a whole lot of time. So go check them out, link in the description below.